198 Yada Yahowah, Mow'ed, appointments. 4. Kipurym, reconciliations. Coming home? More than anything, Yahowah wants his people to know the truth. It is the only cure for what ails them and the only way to survive the onslaught which is headed their way. During that day, Yowm Kipurym, there will be, higher, a resource opened eliciting a response, makor patak, a fountain and wellspring which is released, flowing for all to hear and respond, for the house of Dowd, la Baith Dawid, for a united Israel representing the family of the beloved, and for the inhabitants of Yaruwshalaim, while la Yashab Yaruwshalaim, to reconcile having been misdirected and wrong, chatak, to purify those who had previously missed the way, and to purge detestable corruption. While nida, to resolve being defiled and filthy because of being common and polluted, immoral, idolatrous, especially impure. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 13:1. Israelites will be afforded a makor patak, resource which will be released for all to hear and respond. Its purpose will be to help those comprising the house of Dowd to chatak, reconcile the fact that they have been misled and are thus wrong. This resource, one provided courtesy of Yahowah, will la nida, help purge the detestable corruptions common among Jews, which have served to defile them. I hope they consider what we have discovered. 199 And it shall come to exist, Wahaya, on that day, Yowm Kipurym, prophetically declares, Naum, Yahowah, Yahowah, an accurate presentation of the name of Eloah, God as guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his higher existence, of the spiritual implements, Zaba, of the vast array of heavenly messengers, I will uproot and banish, Karat, I will sever and remove, that which is associated with the names, Shem, the designations, renown, fame, and reputations, of the vexing idolatrous images and displeasing objects of religious veneration, Azab, man-made relics used during worship and images of reverence, from Azab, to vexed, displease, harm, and grieve, from, Min, the land and earth, Eres, this region and the world, so that they are no longer recalled, proclaimed, or remembered, while Ozakar, no longer invoked, spoken about, or mentioned, ever again, owed, forevermore. Moreover, Wagam, those who claim to have been inspired such that they speak for God, Nabi, men who profess to be spiritual spokespeople and who speak as authoritative messengers regarding the past or future, along with the infamous and religiously defiling spirit, Ruach, in addition to the notoriously inappropriate and completely unsuitable, unclean and unethical spirit, I will invalidate and banish, Obar, I will repeal and punish, disrobing with great animosity. From the land and earth, Min Eres. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 13:2. This prophecy is akin to Yahowah's statement in Howsha, whereby he says that upon his return, he will never have to endure Baal, the Lord's name or title spoken again. God cares so little for religion, there is no standalone Hebrew word to express the concept. For those who believe 200 that God has ordained their faith, this deficiency in terminology should be troubling. While there is no Hebrew word for religion, this does not keep God from denouncing the practice. Azab describes displeasing objects of religious veneration. Therefore, Yahowah is removing anything and everything which elicits worship. The most vexing of those to be banished by the Almighty will be crosses, particularly those revealing a dead and tortured God nailed to a stick. Statues of Mary, stars of David, and crescent moons will be next. As for the names he will eliminate from man's lexicon, they begin with Jesus Christ, the Lord, Hashem, and Allah. When God is done, there will be no memory of Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. There are two types of people who assert that they speak for God, the religious and the political. Both will be invalidated and banished. And isn't it ironic considering that, those having claimed to have been chosen by God, the opposite is true. The reason that clerics such as these end up locked away in Sheol is that God deems them to have associated themselves with the Ruach HaTumah, religiously defiling spirit. As such, popes and priests, rabbis and imams, preachers and pastors will be eternally incarcerated in Sheol. Leading people away from God is not a victimless crime. Up until the point of Yahowah's return on Yowm Kipurym, it behooves God's people for us to expose and condemn all aspects of religion, including besmirching the names and titles attributed to their venerated objects of worship. But once Yahowah cleans house, they will no longer exist to trouble anyone. With every religious symbol and proponent eliminated, malcontents will be few and far between. New 201 souls conceived during the Eden years will still enjoy free will, so there will be those who choose to go rogue. It shall come to pass, Wahaya, that if anyone, Kywaish, claims to speak as a prophet, Nobba, claims to communicate the past or future, again, owed, thereafter, then his father, Abhu, and his mother, Amhu, will say, Amar, to the child they conceived and bore, Lahu Yalod, you shall not continue to live, Lo Chea, you will not have your life restored or preserved, Kal imperfect, for indeed, Ky, you speak, Debar, you have told, Peel perfect, lies, Sukah, that which is misleading and deceives. Testify falsely, disappointing and betraying others for no reason, in the name, place and reputation, Shem, in the proper designation, location, and renown, of Yahweh, Yahowah, an accurate presentation of the name of Eloah, God as guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his higher existence. Then his father, YYV, and his mother, YYV, who conceived and bore him, Yalod, Dakar, will pierce him, Dakar, will revile him, along with what he predicts, Barnaby, including what he claims will occur. Zechariah, remember Yahweh, Zechariah 13:3. This statement answers a number of questions. First, children will be conceived and born during the millennial Shabat. This would strongly infer that there will be sex, which is a good thing for those of us who like it. Second, there will be free will, even when we are living in proximity to Yahweh and under Dowd's dominion. During that time, stupid will exist, but it will be short-lived. Third, our experiences in eternity will not be scripted or preordained. Our future is whatever we choose. And therefore, it would be an infringement on our free will for someone to predict one outcome versus another. 202 Since prophecy exists to validate the word of God, such that we can determine what Yahweh inspired, and differentiate it from that which he did not say, we will not be needing proof of authenticity in eternity. We will receive Yahweh's guidance from an unassailable source, with much of it integrated into the fabric of our lives. Fifth, families will be part of our tomorrow. We will know the joys of raising children. Sixth, while the covenant is forever, each new soul will have the same opportunity we have been afforded, which is to accept or reject God. And there will continue to be a less desirable outcome for those who choose poorly. And seventh, we will be judgmental and discerning in the hereafter. These parents are shown deciding the fate of their child. To maintain Eden-like conditions, false teachers will be eliminated swiftly, so that they do not inspire a rebellion, causing another fall. Deceit leads to separation and death. For the sake of the many, the most merciful thing to do is to eradicate evil's host before others are infected. Had this been done with Paul, Akiba, and Muhammad, billions of souls would not have been damned by their lies. On that day, Yowm, the individual, Ish, claiming to be able to foretell the future and speak for God, Nabi, the prophet contemplating proclaiming a spiritual message, will, know that it is wrong and will be too ashamed, Bosh, be aware of the mistaken disapproval and will be too embarrassed, to share their revelation or dream, Chizyam, to convey his vision of what they perceive to be true, from Chaza, to perceive the future, through a prophecy, Bar Nobahu, while under the influence of a spirit as a prophet. 203 He will not play religious dress-up, while lo labish adirth seer, he will not be putting on the involuntary and familiar, destructive and horrible clothing, coats, and robes, in order to deceive, Laman Kekash, to deny reality while dealing falsely, becoming emaciated and cowardly while causing others to cringe. Zechariah, remember Yahweh, Zechariah 13:4. If only Paul and Muhammad had shown such discretion. They knew that they were wrong, that it was all a lie, but knew no shame. The same is true with the majority of rabbis, priests, and imams. They realize that their religious beliefs are irrational, but the lie has become a source of income and prestige. The more popular the huckster, the more you can be assured they are part of the con, beginning with the chief rabbis and ayatollahs, the popes and televangelists. I have sensed it for a long time, but now I am certain of it. God despises religious dress-up. It does not matter if it is a pious Muslim woman sporting a tent, an emaciated and emasculated Orthodox Jew shuffling around in his black mourning clothes, or the popes, cardinals, and priests in their white, red, and black robes. It is all disgusting to God. They are all playing a part, and each role was conceived to deceive. What is tragic about this realization is that millions of Jews have been robbed, raped, and murdered because of the way they dressed. And to know now that it was equally offensive to God makes it all a crying shame. That does not excuse the perpetrators, because they will be exterminated, but it does speak volumes of the men who manipulated their brethren to dress religiously, beginning with the goddamned kippah, or in Yiddish, yarmulke. It is the numbskull notion of halachic rabbis, beginning with the Rambam. It was mandated in the 17th century by Rabbi David Segal, the Taz, explicitly to have Jews look 204 different than Gentiles. It then became a target, one self-imposed, unlike the yellow stars commanded by Hitler. It is one thing to avoid emulating the religious and political notions of the Goyim, and another entirely to capitulate to their religious edicts. The skullcap is not Jewish at all but instead a product of Roman Catholicism. In 1215, the Fourth Council of the Lateran mandated that all adult male Jews wear a cornutus, skullcap outside of the ghetto to distinguish them from others. Yahowah is continuing to excoriate religion. He has told us that he will rid the world of religious icons, religious names, religious prophets, and religious dress-up. Now, having told us about his intolerance for the plague of religion, he transitions from the atypical antagonist during the millennial kingdom to the men who inspired such nonsense. So, wah, he will say, Amar, I am not a prophet, lo Nabi. I am an individual, a nokish, a person, who serves, a bad, who works on behalf of, serving as a servant to, the realm of mankind, Adama, the descendants of Adam, the soil of the earth, or the world. Indeed, ky, from, min, my youth, nor I many, my childhood, I have made merchandise of, kana any, I have bought and sold, acquired and owned, purchased and possessed, men, Adam, humankind. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 13:5. As an interesting fact, neither Paul, Akiba, nor Muhammad claimed to be prophets. They all lacked the God-given ability to validate their claims in the manner of Yahowah's Nabi, who accurately presented past, present, and future events. This deficiency in their resumes, however, did not preclude them from making grandiose claims about serving all mankind. Further, each claimed that they were chosen by God earlier in their lives. 205 Paul begat the wealthiest religion, Muhammad the deadliest, and Akiba the most menacing for Jews. He brought the wrath of Rome upon his people over his promotion of a false Messiah, leading to the diaspora, and his people's enslavement. Paul's religion would see that the Jews would be blamed for their own demise and duly degraded and tortured for crimes they did not commit. And Muhammad, peace be upon him, made certain that the Jews who survived the onslaught of the Roman Catholic Church would be annihilated. While I could have translated the second sentence, I am an individual who works the soil, I did not for two reasons. Since Hebrew has a specific word for cultivated land, field, or tilled soil, I'm convinced God would have used it instead of Adama if he wanted to suggest that the false prophet was a farmer. Therefore, I rendered Adama with its secondary meaning, which is the realm of mankind. This is further advanced by the context and the choice of Yush and Adam on either side of Adama. Moreover, religious types are keen on claiming that they are servants, working on behalf of their fellow man. But truth be known, they are making merchandise of men. Deception is their way of making a living. Kana can mean have bought or sold, have acquired or owned, have purchased or possessed, and thus, having made merchandise of men. It is the whore's way. Yahowah is now leveling his sights on the men who conceived the religions which have diseased, devastated, and decimated his people. After having explained that religious rhetoric will not be tolerated in his presence, he is exposing the souls that he will judge and condemn for having brought the world to its knees, figuratively and literally. After having written in the company, with terrorists, and prophet of doom, and then having 206 completed the Azab, forsaken volume of Yada Yahowah and Howsha, Hosea, I knew enough to confront Christian, Jewish, and Islamic leaders on the immorality of leading the faithful astray for money and prestige. To a person, they all acknowledged that what I had learned was true and that it invalidated their religious claims. But not one would tell their people because it was bad for business. Digging deeper into the swamp that had given rise to their diabolical schemes, it was by studying the founders of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, that I discovered they were all insecure narcissists. And while that may sound like an oxymoron, a 2021 collaborative study, led by Dr. Pascal Wallish, conducted by New York University and the Center for Data Science, proved what I had concluded from the evidence. With Paul, Akiba, and Muhammad, narcissism provided a lustrous varnish to hide otherwise hideous souls. Like religion, it was all a pretense, done to keep up appearances. Knowing that their inner persona was unworthy, they saw no value in others, which led to a lack of empathy. And without concern for anyone, the most conniving and calculating narcissists became psychopaths, and they started the religions of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. This is not my opinion, but instead the evidence-based conclusion drawn from the words and deeds of these men. You will find proof in questioning Paul, prophet of doom, and the Miqra'ey, invitations, Yatsa, harvests, and Mow'ed, appointments volumes of Yada Yahowah. And I share this with you now in the midst of Yahowah's rebuke of religion because I concur with the Almighty. I have seen what he was predicting. I recognize the harm that has been done as a consequence of men, without the moral constraint, lying about God. They have made merchandise of men. 207 Since Yahowah has mentioned Satan's involvement with them, referring to him as the infamously defiling religious spirit, it is germane to know that two of these men, Paul and Muhammad, both admitted to being demon-possessed. Satan is the reason that these garden variety insecure narcissists and psychopaths became two of the most infamous and influential individuals in human history. Satan told them what they wanted to hear, what resonated within them, which is why there is no distinction between Paul and Muhammad and the gods of which they spoke. They are the gods of Christianity and Islam, just as Akiba and his ilk are worshipped by the Haredi. In this light, it is with the sense of satisfaction for having figured it out, and the revulsion of realizing the consequence, that I bring you God's next declarative statement. Still speaking to the men who gave birth to religion, Yahowah reveals. So if someone asks him, Wa Amar Elhu, what is this plague, Mahumah, why is there such affliction and loss of life, how is it that so many are impaired and slaughtered, what is the reason behind this devastating pandemic, that you have influenced, Bayan Yodota, that your associations, your connections between one thing and another have led to you manipulating everything under your control? And he will say, Wa Ma, regarding these associations and this path through life, Asher, I was overwhelmed and stricken, Naka, I was possessed and controlled, battered, conquered, and infirmed, in the house, Baith, in the family and household, of the one who appreciates and desires me, Ahabeni, the one who formed a relationship with me, who has sought to associate with me because he finds me desirable, and who claims to love me. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 13:6. 208 religions are a plague, the most viral and mortal pandemic to inflict mankind. Affirming this, Yahowah calls Shaul, who became Paul, and conceived the deadliest and most pervasive of these, the plague of death. Religion is from the hand of man, not God. It is the product of Babel Bayan, confusing and jaundiced associations and bogus bewildering connections. Religious lies are made to appear credible by the way they are presented in the New Testament, Talmud, and Quran. All three cite from Yahowah's Torah and prophets, twisting and convoluting God's message to give their putrid deceptions a veneer of authenticity. The text of the prophets is misappropriated and misquoted and then intermixed with religious delusions throughout the scriptures of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. As insecure narcissists, Paul, Akiba, and Muhammad were looking for love and adoration in all the wrong places. And they found it feigned by Satan, whose actual empathy was similarly compromised. It is why I shared what I had discovered about them. Therefore, in these words we are witnessing something tragic. The men responsible for crippling humankind are passing the buck, saying that the plagues they perpetrated were not their fault. They are claiming that it was Satan who overwhelmed them by possessing them, and that the resulting chaos was the devil's doing. If you recall, Voice did the same excuse in the garden. Yahowah did not accept it then, nor will he now. This has been breathtaking in its implications. I am grateful to Yah for having thought to share this with us. For his people to accept him, they must first reject the religious influences in their lives, and these insights serve that purpose. As we press on through this prophetic portrait of the last days, and what has led to them, we find very little 209 correlation between the lexicon definitions of the terms found in the Hebrew text and the way they are rendered in English Bible translations. Their expressions are rendered absurd by the context of this discussion. So, I am going to err on the side of caution and provide you with every conceivable alternative for each word. In that regard, while considering the next statement, be aware that cherub can be translated many different ways, including to denote the mountain of God where Yahowah and his Torah were revealed. Further, a war means to blind, to be blinded, to give false testimony, to be fooled by it, or to be malicious and unjust. The same letters, vocalized yur, mean to arouse, to incite, and to stir up. Therefore, I think Yahowah is telling the likes of Paul, Akiba, and Muhammad that, while they have made merchandise of men, he is not buying their excuse. You have chosen to blind by giving false testimony, a war, of your own free will. You have individually made the choice to be unjust and to gloat over your decision to be malicious, and there will be no hiding from the deceptions you have stirred up. Cal imperative, chiseling away at Korib, cherub, to render a dagger and chisel, taking captives by the sword, creating devastation and desolation through inscription, wasting what was gained upon Korib, leaving decay and dung in its place. In opposition to my shepherd, Al-Ra'eni, against the one who leads my flock, feeding and protecting my sheep, and against the empowered and strong man, while Geber, in opposition to the great and mighty person who fights and prevails, from Gabar, to succeed and to confirm, and directly related to Jaibawa, the strong and mighty, upright and valiant, courageous man of character who battles to protect, who serves as my associate, Amith Eni, who is engaged in a close personal relationship with me, my comrade and champion, prophetically declares, Naum, Yahowah, the 210 pronunciation of Yahowah is guided by his Torah, teaching, of the vast array of spiritual implements and heavenly messengers, Zaba. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 13:7. To state this a different way, Satan was the beneficiary, not the cause of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and socialist secular humanism. Paul, Akiba, Muhammad, and Marx were not deprived of free will, they chose to deceive and to associate with the deceiver. The devil did not make them do it. A war written in the Kal imperative, such that when coupled with cherub, reveals God's assessment of religious leaders. They have deliberately blinded the masses by having conjured up false testimony to chisel away at the Torah revealed upon Korib. They individually chose to be deceptive, and then gloat over their maliciousness, taking a dagger to the truth, inscribing that which would squander God's teaching. They did not attack God alone but took aim at his shepherd and associate, the Mashio and Melek, Dowd. Rabbis have drowned out his lyrics with their own. Seeking veneration for themselves, they do not acknowledge Dowd as their shepherd, Messiah, or king, much less Yaruwshalaim and Savior. As for Paul, he would build his edifice by doing away with Dowd, literally burying him, such that he could transfer everything Yahweh said about his son to the caricature he had conceived in Jesus Christ. And once he had replaced Dowd with the mythical misnomer Jesus, he replaced Jews with Gentiles. However, their ruse is over because Yahweh is returning with his Ra, shepherd and Geberomith, his personal associate and leading man, none other than the actual Mashio and Ben Elohim, the Ra and Melek, his beloved, Dowd, the Zarawah. 211 This is all to say, there will be no excuses for the religious, for those following a false prophet, for those playing religious dress-up, for those identifying with religious objects like crosses, or for those who do not recognize Yahweh's shepherd and associate. Now, I need to apologize. I did not see any of this while initially translating or writing Yada Yahowah. It was not until my wife, the most brilliant and beautiful Jewess the world has ever known, shamed me into rewriting everything I had written in Yada Yahowah, an introduction to God, observations, Babel, and questioning Paul after composing Coming Home, that I was able to render this accurately and comment accordingly. I did my best, but I simply did not know enough at the time to appreciate what Yahweh was revealing. Better late than never. With this being my 8th review of this material, hopefully, it will stand the test of time. It certainly reads that way to me. But if not, I'll use what we continue to learn to make the necessary corrections. Over the past 22 years we have been exposed to the best of the word, and the worst of man. We have learned and grown. Some days are inspiring and enlightening, especially liberating and enriching, and others are better. This day, these insights have been among the most rewarding. A religious battle is being waged against the backdrop of Yahweh's return to earth. The false prophets who have led his sheep to their slaughter will lose because when it comes to protecting Israel, Dowd never fails. When you choose to strike the shepherd, Naka eth hara, if you choose to kill the shepherd, destroying what the shepherd represents, hyphal imperative, then the sheep are scattered and attacked, wapul's heart sown, a violent and chaotic consequence will continually befall the flock as the sheep is pushed 212 away and dispersed by that decision, Kal imperfect Joseph. But then, I will return, using my hand, to bring restoration, Shubyodeni, after having turned away, I will come back, using my influence to change and bring back, offering a renewed opportunity, hyphal perfect, upon, these little ones, Heart-Esar, those in the flock who have been trivialized as insignificant and are not properly appreciated. Zachariah, remember Yahweh, Zechariah 13:7. When the rabbis placed themselves and their words over God, they lost sight of Dowd, too. And it was by failing to consider his example, that the sheep were scattered. The corollary is also true. It is by coming to appreciate Yahweh's chosen one, his beloved son, the Messiah and King, the shepherd and branch, God's firstborn and his associate, the prophet who was right, that we find the hand of God returning to bring restoration. It is what we learned by translating Yesher, Isaiah for observations and by contemplating the Mizmor, Psalms for coming home. It is God's constant message from Mow'ed to Malachi. In the next prophetic statement, the Erez, land is likely a reference to Israel and thus to Yahuwdym, Jews. Sadly, 2/3 of those who were alive at the beginning of the time of Jacob's troubles will now be gone. As bad as that seems, with the demise of 5 to 10 million Jews, their death will be at the hand of man, not God. The 1/3 spared is Yahweh's remnant, with him saving them from the onslaught. It shall come to exist, Wahaya, in the whole, Bar-Shurl, within the entire, land, Ha-Erez, the region or earth, prophetically predicts, Naum, Yahowah, written as directed by his Torah, teaching, 213th portion according to the word is that 2/3, Peshanim Bar-Hai, shall be cut off and eliminated, Karath, will be uprooted and banished, cut down and killed, perishing, Gawa, expiring and dying, having breathed their last and, 1/3, Ha-Shalishi, will be the remnant spared and preserved of them. Yathar Bar-Hai, will survive and remain with them. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 13:8. There are several reasons that Eres is translated as land rather than earth. First, that is the word's primary meaning. Second, Yahowah has been speaking to the house of Dowd, to Yahuwdym, and to those living within Yaruwshalaim. And third, the world at large is not going to fare nearly this well. It is more likely that 1 in a million of the 8 billion Goyim alive today will be among those spared by Yahowah. Moreover, we are observing Yowm Kipurym, which is about the restoration and reconciliation of Yisrael and Yahuwdym with Yahowah. Keep in mind, by this time a third of Jews will be too religious to save. Another third will be too preoccupied or political to consider Yahowah. So, God is saving every Jew that can be spared. These are the ones who will look upon Yahowah as the family is reunited. Fire, in this case, is used metaphorically in the crucible of the time of Jacob's troubles. I will come to and be included among, I will return to pursue, include, and harvest, this 1/3, eth-ha-shalishi. In the fire, ha-esh, I will purge and refine them, perfecting them, wazar-of-hem, I will remove their impurities making them flawless, refined and valuable, as one refines, kazaraf, purifies and perfects by removing the impurities from, silver, eth-ha-kizb, something highly desired and valuable, and tests them, wabachenhem, observes, examines and assesses them, 214 testing and verifying their authenticity and genuineness, as one assesses the authenticity of gold, karbachan eth-ha-zahab. They will individually offer a summons and a welcome, calling out in, Hukarabar, each will consistently call upon, invite, proclaim, read aloud, and recite in, Kalimperfect, my personal and proper name, Shem, and I, myself, will answer them, Wa any Anna Ethu, I will reply and respond to each of them. I will say, Amar, I will acknowledge and confess, each one, Hu, is my family, Am, is my people. And he or she will individually say, Wa Hu Amar, confess, Yahowah, Yahowah, a transliteration of, our Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence, is my God, Elohim Eni. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 13:9. Yahowah is not only returning for his people and coming back to Yaruwshalaim, he will be included among them. God is not, however, lowering his standards nor changing his approach. Those who are accepted will have passed his test, just as was done by Abraham. And yet, being right is not difficult because his is an open book test in the fullest sense of the word. Having read these books, you know the answers. Our metal is tested, and our character refined and forged in the crucibles of our day. Such was the case with Dowd. It is by overcoming challenges and prevailing when others are hesitant that we develop the confidence and courage, the sense of adventure, that Yahowah finds appealing. It is also in a crucible that we are purged of religious and political dross, perfected because God values our 215 company. The observant are examined, and their authenticity is assessed. And that is as it should be because, if God allowed everyone who asked to be included in his family, into heaven, it would be no better than hell, and the hereafter no different than the here and now. So much for Jews writing God, saying Hashem or the Lord. On this day, Yahowah's name will be on the lips and in the hearts of Yahuwdym. The very act of summoning Yahowah by name will demonstrate that these Jews are different, that their thinking, perspectives, and attitudes have changed radically. They will reject Judaism's prohibition against actually saying Yahowah's name, and in the process, they will form a personal relationship with God. They will become covenant. Yahowah is referring to the divorce decree he issued through Howsha, Hosea. He is announcing that it is over. This is the family reunion foretold in connection with Yowm Kipurym. Out of the Holocaust, Israel was restored, so out of the ashes of war led by the Torah one, Yahuwdym will be reunited with God. Having been blinded since the days of Yeshua, Isaiah and divorced since the words of Howsha, Hosea, the chosen people are together again. This is an inappropriate place to insert a chapter break because the scene has not changed. But nonetheless, the Christians who provided these contrivances decided to begin the 14th chapter of Zechariah by affirming that this is all occurring on Yowm Kipurym, the day of reconciliations. Behold, Hine, open your eyes, look up, pay attention, and see, a day, Yowm, a time, of return is coming, Bo, will arrive for inclusion and a harvest, to approach, La, Yahowah, Yahowah, the proper 216 pronunciation of Yahowah, our Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence and our shalom, restoration. And then, Wah, that which is good and valuable, Shalal, property and possessions, that which is enriching and beneficial, will be apportioned and assigned, Chalak, will be dispersed and distributed, to you in your midst, Athbar Kirebath. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:1. The apportionment of that which is good and valuable could mean any one or all of three things. First, they will be receiving the benefits of the covenant. Second, during the millennial Shabat, each of the 12 tribes will be reassigned the land which was originally granted to them. Or third, the property stolen from Jews throughout history, beginning with the Egyptians, will be returned. Here then is the prelude to reconciliations. During that day, Bar ha-Yowm ha-Hu, there will be, higher, a resource opened eliciting a response, Makor Patak for the house of Dowd, addressing a united Yisrael, La Beth Duid, and for the inhabitants of Yaruwshalaim, Wala Yashab Yaruwshalaim, to reconcile, having been misdirected and wrong, Chatak, and to purge detestable corruption, Wala Nida. Zechariah 13-1. And it shall come to exist, Wahaya, on that day, Bar ha-Yowm ha-Hu. Prophetically declares, Naum, Yahowah, Yahowah, of the spiritual implements, Zaba, I will uproot and banish, Karat, that which is associated with the names Eth-Shem, of the vexing idolatrous images and displeasing objects of religious veneration, Azab, from, Min, the land and earth, Eres, so that they are no longer recalled, proclaimed, or remembered, Wala Zakar, ever again, Ode. 217. Moreover, Wagam, those who claim to have been inspired such that they speak for God, Eth ha-Nabi, along with the infamous and religiously defiling spirit, Wa Eth Ruach ha-Tumah, I will invalidate and banish, Obar, from the land and earth, Min Eres. Zechariah 13-2. It shall come to pass, Wahaya, that if anyone, Kewaish, claims to speak as a prophet, Nobba, again, Ode, then his father, Wa-Abhu, and his mother, Wa-Amhu, will say, Amar, to the child they conceived and bore, Lahu Yalod, you shall not continue to live, Lo Chea, for indeed, Ky, you speak, Debar, lies, having testified falsely, betraying others for no reason, Sukah, in the name, place, and reputation, Shem, of Yahowah, Yahowah. Then his father, Wa-Abhu, and his mother, Wa-Amhu, who conceived and bore him, Yalodhu, Dakar, will revile and pierce him, Dakarhu, along with what he predicts, Bar-Nabihu. Zechariah 13-3. On that day, Bar ha-Yowm ha-Hu, the individual, Ish, claiming to be able to foretell the future and speak for God, Ha-Nabi, will, Haya, know that it is wrong and will be too ashamed, Bosh, to share his or her revelation or dream, Chiziam-Hu, through a prophecy, Bar-Nobahu. He will not play religious dress-up, while lo labish a dearth seer, in order to deceive while denying reality, becoming emaciated and cowardly while others cringe, Laman Kakash. Zechariah 13-4. So, Wah, he will say, Amar, I am not a prophet, lo Nabi. I am an individual, an Okish, who serves, Abad, the realm of mankind, Odama. 218. Indeed, Ky, from, Min, my youth, nor I'm any, I have made merchandise of, Kana any, men, Adam. Zechariah 13-5. So if someone asks him, Wa Amar el-Hu, what is this plague, why is there such affliction and loss of life, how is it that so many are impaired and slaughtered, what is the reason behind this devastating pandemic, Mahumah, that you have influenced by making your connections between one thing and another, manipulating everything under your control, Bayan Yodota. And he will say, Wa Ma, regarding these associations and path through life, Asher, I was overwhelmed and stricken, possessed and controlled, Naka, in the house, Baith, of one who appreciates and desires me, Ahab any. Zechariah 13-6. You have chosen to blind by giving false testimony, then gloated over your decision to be malicious, so there will be no hiding from the deceptions you have stirred up, a war, chiseling away at Korib, creating devastation and desolation through your inscriptions, Cherub, in opposition to my shepherd, Al-Ra-Eni, and against the empowered and strong man, Wa-Al-Geber, who serves as my associate, Amith-Eni, prophetically declares, Naum, Yahowah, of the vast array of spiritual implements and heavenly messengers, Zaba. When you choose to strike the shepherd, negating what the leader of the flock represents, Naka eth ha-Ra, then the sheep will be scattered and attacked, Wapul's heart sown. So, then, Wah, I will return, using my hand, to bring restoration, Shub-Yod-Eni, on behalf of, Al, these little ones in the flock who have been trivialized, Ha-Tsar. Zechariah 13-7. 219. It shall come to exist, Wahaya, in the entirety of, Bar-Shurl, the land, Ha-Eres prophetically predicts, Naum, Yahowah, the portion that 2/3, Peshanim Bar-Hai, shall be cut off and eliminated, Karath, perishing, Gower, and, Wah, 1/3, Ha-Shalishi, will be the remnant spared and preserved of them, Yatsa Bar-Hai. Zechariah 13-8. I will come to and be included among, Bo, this 1/3, eth ha shalishi. In the fire, bar ha esh, I will purge and refine them, perfecting them, wazarafhem, as one refines, purifies, and perfects kazaraf, silver, eth ha kisb, and tests them, observes, examines and assesses them, testing and verifying their authenticity and genuineness, wabachan hem, as one assesses the authenticity of gold, karbachan eth ha zahab. They will individually offer a summons and a welcome, calling out in, Hu-Kara-Bar, my personal and proper name, Shem, and I, myself, will answer them, Wa any Anna eth Hu. I will say, Amar, each one, Hu, is my family, Am? And he or she will individually say, Wa Hu Amar, Yahowah, Yahowah, is my God, Elohim any. Zechariah 13-9. Look up and pay attention, Ine, the day, Yowm, of return and inclusion is coming, Bo, to approach, La, Yahowah, Yahowah. And then, Wa, that which is good and valuable, enriching and beneficial, Shalal, will be apportioned and assigned, Shalak, to you in your midst, Athbar Kirebath. Zechariah 14-1. 220. As mankind's sixth millennium comes to a chaotic close, there will be no indecision. Those who remain will either be with God or against him. Those who oppose Yahowah will be brought to Jerusalem for a rendezvous with their Maker, and they will provide evidence against themselves right to the bitter end. I will gather, Wa Asap, I will assemble, all, Eth Shurl, of the people from different races and places, Gawim, of the foreign nations opposed to Yisrael, 2, El, Yaruwshalaim, Yaruwshalaim, for the war, Laha Milchama, to form the battle lines and wage war. The city, Ha'ir, will be seized, Lakid, will be taken by force and captured. And the families and their houses, Wabaith, the homes and households, will be plundered, Shasas, will be raided and ransacked, pillaged and looted, and the women, Waha Isha, wives and mothers, will be raped, Shakab, ravished. Half, Chatsi, of the population of the city, Ha'ir, shall leave, Yatsa, as exiles, Vaha Gola, but the remainder, Wayetha, however the remnant, of the people, Ha'am, of the family, will not be cut off or banished, Lo-Karat, will not be uprooted, from, Min, the city, Ha'ir. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:2. Yahowah is telling us that, during the final battle, Jerusalem will endure all Satan's advocates and man's stooges can throw at her, but a significant remnant of Yahuwdym will hold out, and endure. This will be a hellish time. The final crucible of the time of Jacob's troubles. To retain the proper perspective, the lives of covenant members taken on this day, should they be among those ravaged, will be revived on the next, there will be no memory of the abuse, and the property seized will be immediately restored. And for those who are victimized who are not covenant, there were only fleeting moments 221 left of their lives. Therefore, what this is showing is that Yahowah knows that men will be men until there would be no men left without his intervention. Then Yahowah, the pronunciation of Yahuwah as guided by his Torah, teaching, will come forth to serve, Yatsa, will extend himself, descend, and arrive, and he will oppose, Walakam, he will attack, showing hostility while fighting against, the Gentiles, Bahar Gawim, foreign nations and people from different races and places. For them, Hahem, it will be like a day, Kar Yam, he engages in battle, fighting a hostile force, Lakam Hu, of him being attacked, during a time of war, Bar Yowm Karab. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:3. How is it that Paul and Pals managed to convince billions of Gentiles that they replaced Jews when they carry around prophecies, like this one, which reveal that Yahowah is fighting the Gawim on behalf of the Yahuwdym? Did he prey upon their ignorance in the expectation that the religion he imposed would silence the voice of reason? And how have they been duped into believing that Jesus is returning when the inspired text reads Yahowah? They have this all wrong, presenting statues and images of their man-God descending with flowing robes and open arms when, in actuality, he will be fighting them. They are even clueless to the fact that this will be occurring on Yowm Kipurym in year 6000 year. That said, there is not a single rabbi who knows when he is returning, nor one who would recognize him. They remain oblivious that Yahowah despises them most of all. On that specific day, his day, Bar Ha-Yam Ha-Hu, he will be present, his feet standing, Amod Regal 222 Hu, he will take a stand, setting foot, upon the Mount, Al-Ha, of Olives, Ha-Zith, which, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, faces, Al-Pana, Yaruwshalaim, Yaruwshalaim, the source of guidance on reconciliation, on the east, Min Condemn, toward the sunrise forevermore. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:4. Yahweh's consistent use of on this day, or, more literally, in this specific day, his day, and sometimes as during this essential and corporeal day throughout the prophecies regarding his return to his people in Yaruwshalaim, is significant because there is only one event on his calendar referred to as a Yowm Kipurym, Day of Reconciliations. It is not a coincidence. It is about 1,000 paces for an ordinary man to walk from the Mount of Olives to the Temple Mount, and about twice that far to Golgotha, and the original summit of Mowryah. The Mount of Olives lies due east of the intersection between the site of the original temple, and the city of Dowd. The earthquake which occurs as a result of energy unleashed by Yahweh's presence will create a fissure running east to west, all the way from sea to sea, from the northern extremity of the Dead Sea to the eastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea. A number of hideous structures will be devoured within the rift. Then, the Mount of Olives, Zith, will split into two, Bucca, will be divided, down the middle, Chatzihu, in half, from, Min, the east, Mizrak, from the direction of the sunrise, and to the west, Yam, to the sea. A great valley, Gadol, a large and important, resulting from the tremendous force, Mow'ed, releasing enormous energy, will move, Mobsh, half, Chatzi, of the mountain, northward to conceal, Zarphon, to 223 the north to hide what has been esteemed, and half of it to the south, toward the Negeb, Chatzihu Negeb. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:4. At the very least, the resulting valley would devour the Chapel of the Ascension, the Mount of Olives Ascension Monastery, the Paternoster Church and Monastery, the Dominus Flevit Church, the Church of Mary Magdalene, Absalom's tomb, El Marwani Mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque and the original Masjid Al-Aqsa, the Islamic trophy known as the Dome of the Rock, a marble orchard of Muslim graves, the Tomb of the Virgin, the Western Wall, the Christian Information Center, the Herva Synagogue, St. James Cathedral, the Lutheran Church of the Redeemer, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Via Dolorosa, Mosque of Omar ibn al-Khattab, St. Anne's Church, El Hamra Mosque, Laysa Sion Monastery, Makkah, St. Mark's Church, St. Saviour Monastery, Holy Joseph Abbey, and much of Sultan Suleiman Street. Let's call it urban renewal. The resulting valley will likely be narrowest near the epicenter and then radiate out to the north and south as it travels east and west. Zarphon, which is the word depicting the northward movement, reveals that its purpose will be to conceal the religious rubbish man has wrongly esteemed. South is from Negeb, which suggests that, by the time the valley reaches the sea, it will devour Gaza. Yahowah will be ushering in a lasting peace with a one-state solution. Flee, news, withdraw and escape, to the valley, Gay, of my mountain, Eni, because, Ky, the gorge, Gay, will reach, Naga, will make contact with and level, the mountains, Arim, of Atzel, being withdrawn and separated so as to be beside and near, El Atzel, of being set apart and joined unto. 224 You should withdraw, news, you should escape to safety, in the beneficial manner, Ka Asher, you escaped, news, you withdrew, from the presence, Min Panna, of the earthquake, Rosh, in, Bar, the days, Yowm, of King Melek, Uzziah, Yeh is mighty, transliterated Uzziah, of Yahweh, Yahuwdah, beloved of Yeh and related to Yeh. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:5. When Yahowah speaks of my mountain there are two, one of which is near the Mount of Olives, Mount Mowryah, the site of the temple and city of Dowd. And while Atzel is self-explanatory, the most credible study on its location was advanced by the 1984 geological study conducted by Daniel Walks and Dav Levit. They located a large landslide that had been the aftermath of an earthquake on the Mount of Olives directly adjacent to the Wadi Atzel. This area had formerly been the King's Garden. It is located at the juncture of the Hinnom and Kidron valleys. The Kidron Valley runs north, separating the Mount of Olives from the city of Dowd. It intersects with the Hinnom Valley just below Dowd's city. This is the same site affirmed in Titus Flavius Josephus' account of an earthquake causing a landslide during King Uzziah's reign blocking the king's gardens in the valley. Beyond Atzel meaning to be withdrawn and separated to become beside and near, this location at the southern tip of Zion would confirm the obvious. The remnant in Yaruwshalaim is being invited to withdraw from the carnage by ascending the mountain of God through the home of Dowd to the home of Yahowah on the summit of Mowryah. Since Yahowah mentioned him, Uzziah was king of Yahweh from 790 to 740 BCE. He inherited the throne when he was only 16 and died a leper for having 225 violated Yahowah's instructions. Serving during the time of the prophets, Yashar and Howsha, he fortified the valley gate, which is pertinent to this discussion. Gay, translated as valley, is based upon Gawar, meaning to lift up, but it also serves as the name of the valley gate. Upon Uzziah's death, Yashar witnessed a vision in which he saw Yahowah sitting on a throne with the train of his robe filling the temple, a vision of this very day. Yeshaya 6, it is germane to this story because it suggests that the prophet's words would begin to resonate with his people in advance of this day. Even the earthquake referenced here is connected to Hosea in Amos 1:1, although it is more completely developed in Yeshaya, Isaiah 13, which is a parallel presentation to what we are currently considering. Both passages are presented in observations, the first in growing and the second in teaching. And then, Yahowah, Yahowah, an accurate presentation of the name of Eloah, God as guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his higher existence, my God, Elohim Eni, will return, arrive, and all, shirl, of those who are set apart with him, Kadoshim imhu, those who are separated unto him will be beside him, those special to him and devoted to him included with him. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:5. The marvelous aspect of this declaration, beyond the fact that Yahowah, himself, is returning, is that the covenant members harvested during Towrah will be coming with him. They are represented by the Kadoshim. Kadosh, meaning to be set apart and purified, Kadosh is directly related to Kadash, meaning to kindle a fire which provides light. As such, it provides another confirmation that Kara, Leviticus 23:27, the verse which 226 provides Yowm Kipurym's most essential instruction, was correctly rendered with, and your soul shall respond and answer the summons to appear before and approach the maternal manifestation of the fiery light who purifies, enlightens, and elevates, Isha/Isha, to approach Yahowah. Zechariah explains, there will not be higher, it will exist, on his day, Yawm Ha-Hu, a diminishing, Kipeon, a reduction or dwindling, imperfect paragogic none, of the esteemed and beloved, valued and respected, Yakar, splendorous and beautiful, worthy, influential, and magnificent, light, or, illumination and source of enlightenment. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:6. God is revealing that he will return without dialing down his enlightening presence. Since the Creator is greater than his creation, considering the size of the universe, it is hard to fathom the magnificence. But this I know, everyone not enveloped in Yahowah's set-apart spirit will be instantly incinerated, vaporized. The spirit is the only protection. Kipeon, the operative verb in this passage, could have been translated as make rigid, fixed, and immobile had it not been used in conjunction with or, light. In relation to other substances, Kipeon communicates the solidification of something from a fluid. But when associated with light, Kipeon always means to diminish. This is consistent with nature. As matter is transformed from a gas to a liquid and then to a solid state, every substance other than water diminishes in volume. Since the solidification of light is an obscure concept, the related idea of diminishment applies. 227 most English translations, like the ESV and NIV, render the passage, on that day there shall be no light, cold, or frost. In so doing, they ignore the fact that the negation was of higher, not light. And Kipeon is a verb and thus not cold or frost. The naisb is no closer to the mark with, and it will come about in that day that there will be no light, the luminaries will dwindle. The KJV tries, and it shall come to pass in that day, that the light shall not be clear, nor dark. It is little wonder Christians remain oblivious to the day Yahowah will return. Also, keep in mind that matter is simply organized energy, or light in a diminished state. That is why matter has to be multiplied by the square of the speed of light to determine its quotient of energy. So anytime Yahowah takes on material, human form, he has to set apart and then diminish an aspect of his nature. But this time, during his seventh and final visit, God is going to be more light energy than matter, and perhaps all energy, and thus spirit. Revealing the timing of his return, God inspired Zechariah to write something which unlocks the mystery of no one knows. It shall be, Wahaya, it will exist as, the one, Echad, only exclusive and unique, the certain and explicit, day, Yawm, which, Hu, more typically rendered as he is known, Yada, is revealed and shown, understood and acknowledged, distinguished and discerned, to approach, La, according to, Yahowah, the pronunciation of Yahowah as guided by his Torah, teaching. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:7 in part. Yada, translated as is known, tells us that Yahowah is revealing this to us, so that we realize and acknowledge it, even understand it. This is the day of Yahowah's return, something that should be acknowledged and known by everyone. 228 By using the phrase it shall be the one, certain and unique day which he becomes Yada, known, we have yet another affirmation that Yahowah's return is tied to the day man's relationship with God is reconciled, when he becomes known to the remnant of his people. By using Echad, Yahowah is telling us that there is something very special, singular, and unique about the timing of his return. In all of time, there is only one day which meets his requirements. Of that, we can be certain. This known, there are 7 special days on Yahweh's annual calendar. So, in a general sense, we can be assured that he is telling us that his return will coincide with one of these unique days. But since the first 4 Miqra'ey were fulfilled in order in 33 CE during year 4000 year, the list of potential dates is reduced to 3. The first unfulfilled Miqra'ey, Towrah, is one of 3 harvests, so it is disqualified topically, and also because as one of 3, it is not unique. And since Yahweh's pattern has been to fulfill the Miqra'ey in chronological order, there is but one day on God's annual calendar which meets the Zechariah 14:7 criterion, and is consistent with his pattern, the Day of Reconciliations. Moreover, of the remaining unfulfilled possibilities, Sukah, shelters is symbolic of the millennial Shabat. It is not just a day but instead 1000 years of celebrating its 7 plus a day pattern. Therefore, Yowm Kipurym, which is the only Miqra'ey with Yowm, day emblazoned in its name, shall be the one Yowm he becomes known according to Yahowah. But what year is the question? Everything in the Torah and prophets points to the pattern of 6, mankind, plus 1, God, equals 7, perfection. We are even told that a day is like 1,229 years to Yahowah. It is all laid out for us throughout his witness. Between the genealogies revealed in the Torah, history, and archaeology, we know that Adam and Chor were escorted out of the Garden of Eden in 3968 BCE. Yahowah met with Noach to discuss the impending deluge that would flood the region of the world in which men with a neshama lived in 2968 BCE. This date is affirmed by the discovery of the Berkel meteor crater in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Madagascar. The covenant was confirmed with Abraham on Mount Mowryah in 1968 BCE, 40 Yowbel after Adam left Eden. In 968 BCE, the cornerstone of Yahweh's temple on Mount Mowryah was laid. Then exactly 40 Yowbel after Abraham's prophetic dress rehearsal, Dowd fulfilled the Miqra'ey of Passover, unyeasted bread, and firstborn children in 33 CE. That same Yowbel year, the 4th Miqra'ey, 7 Shabbats, was honored on the exact date, further establishing a pattern. There is even some evidence that the waters under the temple were poisoned in 1033 CE, reflecting the Bar Midbar, Numbers 5 divorce decree. Out of the ashes of the Holocaust, Israel was reborn. Just as Yahweh had foretold, his people returned to the land. And the next Yowbel year just so happens to be 40 Yowbel from the fulfillment of the first 4 Mow'ed Miqra'ey, 2033. 40 depicts the completion of a time of testing. And the Yowbel represent the time debts are forgiven, everyone is freed, and the land returns to God. Moreover, 2033 will mark 6,000 years, since the expulsion from Eden, when redemption's calendar started counting down the day to reconciliation. 230 The final 1,000-year period begins 5 days after Yah's return, on the 7th Miqra'ey, the feast of Sukah, shelters, in which God camps out with his family for a millennium. Therefore, we can reasonably deduce that the one, exclusive, unique, and certain day in which Yahweh will become known is Yowm Kipurym in 2033, year 6,000 year. Further, Mizmor, Psalm 102 speaks prophetically of the Holocaust, 1932 to 1945, and states that the generation which experiences it will be the last. So, to determine how long after the Holocaust Yahweh's return could be, and still be witnessed by the same generation, it is instructive to know that the average life expectancy among Jews who survived the Holocaust was 85 years, with their direct descendants expected to live 88 years on average. And the maximum life expectancy, and thus the far extremity of the prophecy, of a Jewish person living today is known to be around 105 to 107 years. Philadelphia resident Herbert Brown, a 105-year-old Jewish Dachau concentration camp survivor, and his 100-year-old wife, Magda, were the oldest living married couple in 2005. In October 2007, Jewish caricaturist Boris Efimov celebrated his 107th birthday in a Moscow synagogue. Therefore, we should expect Yahweh's return to be 88 years after 1945, which is 2033, and no later than 2050. God not only knows the day he is going to return, he made it possible for us to discern this date from his word. Converted to our pagan Gregorian calendar, his arrival will occur at sunset in Jerusalem on October 2, 2033, and in a moment, Yahweh will reveal the exact time, right down to the minute. At this point it is hard to imagine, but should a Christian have read this far into the 6th volume of Yada Yahowah, which is actually the 27th overall that has been rewritten, this last prophetic statement from Yahowah 231 clears up one of their more beguiling delusions: no one knows the hour of God's return. Normally, we would only delve into the text of the Twistian New Testament to expose and condemn its message, but an exception can be made on this occasion with the John and with the 2 sections of Matthew which were plagiarized from the Ebionites. They, as demonstrated in Coming Home and Questioning Paul, recorded the Messiah's oratory in Hebrew. and it was their eyewitness accounts of the Sermon on the Mount and Olivet Discourse which were incorporated into the Gospel of Matthew. All of the rest were either pilfered from Mark or Luke or added by Eusebius on behalf of Rome and Roman Catholicism in the 4th century. Nonetheless, let's compare Zechariah's testimony to that which is recorded in Matthew 24. In Matthew's Greek translation of the Messiah's Hebrew conversation, translated twice, from Hebrew to Greek and from Greek to English, we find, but nevertheless, concerning the immediate vicinity of, peri, that one specific and definite, ekinos, day, hemera, and, kai, hour, hora, no one, audis, recognizes, oida, appreciates, acknowledges, is acquainted with, or is aware of, sees, observes, perceives, discerns or notices not, ood, the messengers agalos, of heaven, oranos, only the Father, pi a rho. The only one who exists for all time, monos. Matthew 24:36. Of the 18 pre-Constantine manuscripts of portions of Matthew, this statement was not included in any of them. There is a record, however, of those responsible for creating the Textus Receptus, altering the alleged not even the Son remark so that it would match Mark 13:32. Therefore, when it comes to this alleged declaration, most scholastic tools are rendered unreliable. Equally troubling, there is only one manuscript of Mark dating to the 1st through 3rd century CE, and it ends in the 12th chapter. This reliability problem is further compounded by the fact 232 that Greek was already a translation of what the Messiah may have said, because most of the Olivet Discourse was quoted from Zechariah, which was written in Hebrew. This leaves us with 6 different ways to explain these words. First, we can discard all of it because it is found in an otherwise fraudulent fairy tale. Second, if we retain the not even the Son reference, it would require Dowd to be deprived of a nipesh, soul, rendering his words and deeds irrelevant. Considering the fact that current scholarship confirms over 300,000 known variations and alterations between the Textus Receptus and older codices, I am certain that he said no such thing. And speaking of the Son, if Dowd did not say these things, then there was an impostor afoot. This distinction belongs to Dowd, and no one else at that time. Further, the concluding line, only the Father, pi a rho, the only one who exists for all time, monos, while accurate in its depiction of the mortality of the Passover lamb, destroys the myth that the speaker was God. This known, the Greek as we have it today actually reads not, ood, the messengers, agalos, of heaven, oranos, if, a, not, me, the, o, son, hyos. Dowd may be excluding himself from those who do not know, which solves the problem. The third option, one predicated on the removal of not even the Son, requires us to assume that Yahweh's messengers, who are eternal spirits and thus able to experience time differently than we do, have no interest in knowing the timing of the most important event in world history. I suppose that is possible since they are spiritual implements. Yet, in this same passage, the Messiah is alleged saying that these messengers will announce the arrival. So, even if they were unaware, they will be informed in advance so that they can fulfill their mission. 233. As for mankind, the universally ignorant interpretation requires us to make the statement open-ended. That is to say, no one will ever know. But if this were the case, it requires us to question why God would provide an overwhelming amount of detail specific to his plan and his timeline and yet not want us to understand any of it. Confronted with thousands of useful clues and one poorly rendered passage that seems to negate their purpose, Christian theologians have almost universally held up the grain of sand while ignoring the mountain of evidence counter to it. Therefore, while God did not inspire these words, we would be unwise to suggest that he would infer, "You are so stupid, you'll never figure this out no matter how obvious I make it." Our fourth alternative is so obvious, the first modern theologian to consider its implications within the context of God's timeline, John Mill, in 1707, accurately concluded that the verb, oida, in Matthew 24:36 was rendered in the present tense. So, the Zarawah would not have indicated that no one has ever known, or that no one would ever recognize the day, but only that no one at that specific moment in time was aware of it. That said, while Greek offers a present tense, there is none in Hebrew. All Hebrew verbs are true throughout time. Worth noting is that not only did Mill close the case on closed-mindedness with this analysis, but his continued investigations also prompted him to question the accuracy of the Textus Receptus. He, himself, found 30,000 errors in the universally accepted, and yet overwhelmingly flawed, document which underlies English Bible translations. And that brings us back to option 1, Matthew is poorly attested fiction. But should we want to play along and resolve a potential riddle, oida, translated as recognizes in the passage, is the weakest of the 3 Greek words rendered as no. Its primary meaning is actually see, not 234 no, and it conveys something more along the lines of no one sees, pays attention to, perceives, notices, discerns, discovers or observes, therefore remotely understands or comprehends, the one specific day. In classical Greek, oida denoted intuitive understanding and being acquainted with something theoretically. Knowledge based upon evidence is ginosko in Greek, and complete knowledge is epiginosko. So, all Yahusha allegedly said was that no one recognizes the day because they are not paying attention to the evidence. More specifically, oida was written in the perfect indicative tense. Such verbs describe a completed action that occurred in the past but which produced a resulting state which exists in the present. The perfect tense, therefore, conveys that the present state of affairs at the time this was spoken existed because of a previous condition. The indicative tense simply denotes that the condition is real. This means that the ubiquitous failure of the audience, should there have been one, to understand Dowd's mission within the context of the Torah, prophet, and Psalms had resulted in the present condition of being unable to recognize what had been predicted. The inference is that virtually no one recognizes this specific indefinite day because their perspective is backward, and their thinking is convoluted. The evidence is there. Those who want to know can know. The reason for this is that, as a rule, Christians do not study Yahweh's Torah and thus do not understand the Berith or Miqra'ey. They do not even know what the Miqra'ey represent nor when they transpire. They do not understand the Besith, Genesis 1 timeline or its prophetic implications, and not one in 1,000 connects what may have been said here to the original statements in Zechariah. And of course, after robbing Dowd to create the myth of Jesus, perceiving what the Mashiach and Zarawah is doing becomes difficult. 235 The fifth option relative to understanding this potential conversation is tied to the fact that the speaker quickly transitioned to a different subject. While the day of the year this ingathering will occur is known to those who study the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, the year it will transpire is not certain in that it could occur in 2026, 2027, 2028, or even 2029. In this regard, Dowd's answer, to the degree it was actually spoken and accurately recorded, transmitted, and translated, was ingenious. Rabbis have substituted the Babylonian Rosh Hashanah, head of the year, for Yahweh's Taruah, shout for joy and signal a warning. Rabbis called it the hidden day no one knows, only the Father. In their warped minds, it was the one day each year Satan accused Jews of being bad before God. So, they blew their trumpets to confuse the devil. And they kept the day a secret so that Satan would miss his appointment. Therefore, by saying that he would come for his family on the day no one knows, only the Father, the Messiah was revealing that the harvest of saved souls would occur on Taruah, now religiously mischaracterized as Rosh Hashanah. The sixth consideration for interpreting this statement is based on the similarities between it and the inspired text in Zechariah. The subject, timing, context, and word selections are virtually identical, meaning that it is likely that, should this discussion have occurred, Dowd was answering a question by citing one of several prophets who provided the answer. Therefore, he would have recited, "It shall be, Wahaya, the one, Echad, only and exclusive, unique and certain, day, Yowm, which, Hu, is known, Yada, is revealed and shown, understood and acknowledged, distinguished and discerned, to approach, La, Yahowah, Yahowah." Zechariah 14-7. 236 The translation of this Hebrew citation into Greek, then Latin, back into Greek, and finally to English, without the benefit of an early manuscript, and thus tormented by many over 3 centuries of religious tampering, changed it to. But nevertheless, concerning the immediate vicinity of, Piri, that one specific and definite, Ekinos, day, Himera, and, Kai, hour, Hora, recognizes, oida, appreciates, acknowledges, is acquainted with, or is aware of, sees, observes, perceives, discerns or notices not, Ood, the messengers, Agalos of heaven, Oranos, only the Father, Pi-Ro, the only one who exists for all time, Monos. Matthew 24:36. The quotes are so similar, the best explanation, is that the purported answer was a paraphrase of Zechariah. It is not about not knowing but, instead, recognizing where to look. Zechariah continues and explains. It shall be, Wahaya, the one, Echad, the only and exclusive, the unique and certain, day, Yowm, which, Hu, he, is known, Yada, is revealed and shown, understood and acknowledged, distinguished and discerned, to approach, La, according to, Yahowah, Yahowah. Neither day, Lo Yowm, neither the ability to distinguish time by daylight from sunrise to sunset, nor night, Walo Layla, nor the presence of darkness from sunset to sunrise, will exist, higher. Then at the timing, La Eth, of sundown, Arab, there will be, higher, then there will continually exist, Kal imperfect, light, or, illumination and enlightenment. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:7. All of Yahweh's Miqra'ey begin at sunset at the conclusion of the prior day. Therefore, the Day of Reconciliations, which is the 10th day of the 7th month, starts at twilight on the 9th day and culminates at 237 sunset on the 10th. And since Yahweh is touching down on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, his glorious return will occur at sunset on October 2, 2033, which will occur at 6:22 p.m. It will be approaching lunchtime on the American East Coast, 11:22 a.m., based upon the 7-hour time zone differential. However, Yahweh has testified that, on this day, the sun's light will be either so obscured by smoke and debris in the air that day will be indistinguishable from night, or his light will be so brilliant that there will never again be darkness. Therefore, since we will not be able to use the normal transition from day to night, Yahweh has provided instructions that we can deploy to ascertain the moment of his arrival. To be consistent with the Torah, God must arrive within the specified 24-hour period he designated for the Mow'ed Miqra'ey of Kippurim. And while that could be any time between sunset on the 9th of Tishri and twilight on the 10th, our October 2nd and 3rd, 2033, I think the reference to Arab sunset is both literal and symbolic. Further, La-eth, which was translated as then approaching the timing, also suggests the earliest possible arrival within the window. As such, his return will occur at the beginning of Yowm Kipurym and not after it is over. Open your calendars and set your clocks. Yahweh will return to planet Earth at 6:22 p.m., Jerusalem time, 11:22 a.m. EST, on October 2, 2033, the dawning of the Day of Reconciliations. The chasm that was cut by the great rift formed by the earthquake, swallowing up man's religious grime, will be filled with living waters. It will transpire, Wahaya, then it will happen, on that day, Baha Yawm HaHu, during his moment in time, that living waters, Shem, life-sustaining, invigorating, nourishing, reviving, renewing, and purifying 238 waters, shall flow, Yatsa, will come forth, coming out, Kal imperfect, from, Min, Yaruwshalaim, the source of guidance on restoration and renewal, half, Chatsi, of them toward, Hem-el, the eastern, Ha-Kadmoni, the former, C, Ha-Yam, and half, Wa-Chatsi, toward, Hem-el, the western, Akaroun. The final, C, Ha-Yam. Zechariah, remember Yahweh, Zechariah 14:8. In an interlinear, this passage reads in the Hebrew word order, and it will be on that day that they will flow out, waters of living ones from Jerusalem, half of them to the sea eastern/former and half of them to the sea western/final. Living waters is one of 7 metaphors Yahweh uses to describe himself and his purpose. His symbols are, light, the bread of life, the upright pillar, the living waters of the set-apart spirit, the rock of our salvation, the word, and the family. The eastern sea is the Dead Sea, so since Kadmoni also means former, it will thrive again with life. The earthquake will create an exit to the sea for the salt and mineral-saturated waters which are fed by the Jordan River. Opening what is currently the world's deepest fault would cause what is now dead to support life. These living waters would flow down from Yaruwshalaim, which is perched several thousand feet above the headwaters of the Dead Sea, and ultimately flow out through the Gulf of Aqaba and into the Red Sea. Moses and the Israelites crossed the Gulf of Aqaba into the Arabian Peninsula when fleeing Pharaoh during the Yatsa, Exodus. The waters, which Yahweh parted to save his people, will save them again. Speaking of Yatsa, it is also the verb Yahweh used to describe the Exodus, and the removal of his people from Mitsraym, the crucibles of religious and political persecution. There is, therefore, a connection between this 239 act of salvation and the one which transpired 3,450 years ago. Also interesting, the Western Sea, which is the Mediterranean, is labeled Akaroun. In addition to Western, it speaks of everything pertaining to the final solution in the last days being brought to fruition without hesitation. I admire pristine mountainous terrain replete with cascading crystal-clear waters and soaring cedars. And by comparison, I found the onslaught of Christian and Muslim edifices in Jerusalem, all of which were infected with the religious, exceedingly unattractive. Therefore, I have often tried to envision the resulting scene. In my mind's eye, I see a natural fountain atop the Mount of Olives with tumbling white waters glistening in Yahweh's light dancing their way down into the Kidron and Hinnom valleys. They will shimmer as they pass through the newly formed fissure between the restored homes of Dowd and Yahweh, perhaps with a bridge composed of light over them. This stream will widen as it travels to the sea in the west while forming majestic waterfalls as it descends into what is now the living sea in the east. With Yaruwshalaim serving as the source of these living and restoring waters, Yahweh's city will be living up to its name, the source of guidance and teaching on restoration and renewal. This conclusion is somewhat validated by the completion of the 8th prophetic statement. While Kates is often translated as summer and Korif rendered as winter, both terms are more suggestive. That said, the subject remains the living waters. They shall continually exist, higher, with, bar, the summer fruit, Hakates, the time of awakening and being alive, as with Wabar, the autumn harvest, Cherif, 240 the prime of life, Zachariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:8. Beyond being the occasion of awakening and the best time to be alive, those taking in this scene will be in the prime of their lives. This suggests that the covenant's children will grow enormously in Yahowah's presence, being enriched, empowered, and enlightened, such that we will forever be in the prime of our lives. A literal interpretation of this statement would indicate that, after Yahowah's return, summer and winter will be the same. It will be like the Garden of Eden, which was bathed in dew but bereft of rain, and therefore the ideal temperature year-round, day and night. If you recall, clothing was optional. It is reminiscent of my current experience in the Virgin Islands, where on this lovely summer day the temperature will rise to the high 80s this afternoon and slip down to the low 80s this evening, all while a lovely 8-knot trade wind flutters the palm fronds between us and the Caribbean Sea. While life is simple, even a bit primitive, here, between now and the time Yaruwshalaim is restored, it is hard to imagine a better environment in which to translate and write. These are the temperature ranges that I would expect for the Edenification of Earth. Even during the millennial Shabat, which follows 5 days later on Sukah, conditions continue to replicate those enjoyed by Adam and Chor. And then, Yahowah, a transliteration of, our Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence, will at that moment, will be, perfect, genuinely limiting the duration, approach the king, melek, be near and support the sovereign leader and counselor, from malak, effective communicator and advisor, over, the entire, land and earth, eres, region and material realm. 241 during that day, which is his time, he will always be, he will continually, literally, and consistently exist as, imperfect, Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of Yahowah, our Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his existence and Yaruwshalaim, restoration, who is one, Echad, first, foremost and certain, with his one, Echad, with his singular and exclusive, personal and proper name, Shem. Zachariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:9. There are always numerous ways to render the preposition la. Here, I used its primary definition, which is approach. The other leading options to king, toward king, into king, or concerning king seemed awkward. Moreover, since the verb, was scribed in the perfect conjugation, addressing something that will occur at this particular moment, approach the king was consistent with Yahowah being near Dowd, the man he has designated king of the earth at this time. From this perspective, Yahowah continues to be God with Dowd serving as his appointed king. The Almighty stays true to his word and in character, since his preference has always been to interact with us through select individuals. And there is no one more select than the Son of God, firstborn, and Messiah. The second time appears, it was scribed in the Kal stem, and imperfect conjugation, which means that Yahowah has always and will always remain one. There never has been, nor will there ever be, a Trinity. Our one and only God has only one name. It is Yahowah. Period. Any other name is wrong. The list of errant monikers, therefore, includes Jesus, Christ, the Lord, Allah, and Shiva, to name a few. Furthermore, God cannot be God's name. 242 Pronouncing Yahowah's name is exceedingly easy, so simple even I could figure it out. By his own admission, Yahowah is based upon the operative verb in the previous pronouncements, ha-yah. His name is found 7,000 times in his Torah. Its pronunciation is affirmed in his title, Elohah, and his purpose, Shalom. There is no mystery. There are no exceptions. The entire land, Eres, shall be surrounded by, Sabab, encircled by, something similar to a wilderness plain, Kaha Arabah, a plateau with highly varied, somewhat dense vegetation, from Arab, a pleasant, commingled mixture of agreeable growth, from, Min, Geba, a cup or the calyx of a flower, also known as Gibeah, modern Jeba, toward Rimon, El Rimon, pomegranate, and south, Negeb. Yaruwshalaim, will rise up high in elevation and status, Ram, succeeding, Takath, as an established dwelling place, Yashab high, approaching from the gate, La Min Shah, of Benjamin, as far as the place of the former gate, Ad Makam Shahar Rishon, up to the first and foremost gate, to the corner gate, Ad Shahar Pinna, gate of the cornerstone, and the Tower of God's mercy, Wa Migdal Cananel, the chest or garden, watchtower or podium of favor and acceptance. To the king's winepresses, Ad Yekeb ha Melek. Zachariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:10. While there may be multiple levels of symbolism here, on the surface, Yahowah is establishing a nature preserve around Yaruwshalaim. And he wants us to know that his city will remain unsurpassed in status and elevation. Beyond this, Dowd, David struck down the Philistines in Geba in Shamuel, 2 Samuel 5:25. Geba of Benjamin was punished for all the disgraceful acts that they committed in Israel. In Shaphat, Judges 20:10, raping and dismembering a concubine, and distributing her body 243 parts throughout Israel. The town was 6 miles northeast of Yaruwshalaim. Following this disgraceful act, the last of Benjamin's militia fell after they fled to the wilderness rock of Rimon in Judges 20:45. The rock was named after the Babylonian, Syrian, and Canaanite god of storms. Rimon's rock was 22 miles north by northeast of Yaruwshalaim. Adding insult to injury, Gaba was where King Shaul was born, which is yet another blight on this place. Benjamin's gate was where Mowryah was beaten and put in stocks, in chapter 20, verse 2. He was arrested at the gate of Benjamin a second time and turned over to the Chaldeans, Babylonians, in Mowryah 37:13. Benjamin's territory ran horizontally immediately north of Yaruwshalaim, starting 10 miles west of the city to the point the Jordan River enters the Dead Sea, about 12 miles east. The corner gate and the Tower of Hananel are mentioned in Yirmiah, Jeremiah 31:38. Behold, days are coming, declares Yahowah, when the city will be rebuilt for Yahowah from the Tower of Hananel to the corner gate. At this point, we know that Yahowah's foes do more than lay siege to Yaruwshalaim. The north rim of the city will be attacked, property will be destroyed, and people will be robbed and raped. But, with God's direct intervention, much of the city will be spared. And within her, Wabahai, they will live, Yasab, will dwell and abide established. There will never again be, Lohia-od, a sanctioned possession or destruction, Harim, a ban or a common usage. Yaruwshalaim, will be inhabited, Yashab, safely and securely, Beitar, confidently, free of danger, a reliable and trustworthy environment. Zechariah 14:11. 244 The most contested place on earth will finally know peace. Yahowah will bring his shalom. Harim is a rather provocative term. Translating it as a sanctioned possession of destruction does not do it justice. It conveys something which is prohibited. Therefore, Jerusalem will never again experience a ban or prohibition as currently exists with the Temple Mount. Muslims restrict non-Muslims from visiting the most important place in the world. There will be no restrictions on where Jews can build their homes either. So, then, this, Joth, will be, higher, the plague of rebuke, Majefa, the destructive pandemic of disapproval which kills those who are wrong, the pestilence which slaughters, which, Asher, Yahowah, Yahowah, an accurate presentation of the name of Eloah, God as guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his higher existence, will inflict upon, Nagaf, will strike and afflict all the nations which and people who, Sherleth ha-Asher, organize to fight, Zaba, assemble as militants or military to battle against, Al, the Most High's, Yaruwshalaim, source of instructions on reconciliation. Now, at this time, Henna, simultaneously, their flesh will dissolve while their proclamations vanish, Basar Makakhu, their bodies will decompose and decay, will fester and rot away while their protestations will cease to exist, as they are standing, Wa'amod, as they are present, on their feet, Al-Ragelhu, and their eyes Ein-Hu, will melt, Makak, will dissolve, decomposing and vanishing, in their sockets, Ha-Kori. Their tongues, Wa-Lashon-Hu, will liquefy, Makak, fester and rot away, in their mouths, Bar-Pehu. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:12. 245 Yahowah is always fair. Those who infected their fellow man with the pandemics of religion and politics will be plagued in return. Even the means to this end is appropriate. The consequence of their epidemics has led to the wasting away of human souls, with billions ceasing to exist. Therefore, the proclamations and the tongues which professed them will fester and decompose. Even the eyes which were used to read such malevolence will dissolve within their sockets. This passage speaks of a simultaneous and instantaneous event. Each time Makak is used, it conveys the same thought, liquefaction. Makak can be translated as fester and rot or melt and dissolve, decompose and vanish, suggesting that the bodies and slogans of those who came to wage war against the inhabitants of Jerusalem will be degraded, disintegrating to the point they evaporate into the ether. This should not be surprising since Yahowah is returning as light. Therefore, anyone not protected by the set-apart spirit will dissolve instantaneously. For those who came to destroy Jerusalem, death will come swiftly and there will be no bodies left to bury. However, there will be others still alive elsewhere on the planet. So it shall come to pass, in that day, Yowm Kipurym, that Yahweh's, a transliteration of Yahowah, is instructed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence, greatness, enormity, exalted status, abundant power, awesome authority, and might, around them, among them, will cause consternation and confusion, Mahumah, bewilderment and dismay, anxiety and anguish. 246 So people, individuals, will strong-arm other individuals, will be harsh and obstinate, severely treating, binding and restraining those, who are their fellow countrymen and evil associates, who are their loud-mouthed friends, and wicked companions, even of a similar race, including neighbors who are similarly mistaken. The hand of one, will be raised, against, the hand, of another one of their rotten companions and boisterous friends, of their immoral countrymen, who are equally irrational and loudmouthed. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, 14:13. Mahumah is the opposite of comfort and confidence. It speaks of a state of utter bewilderment leading to emotional anguish. Those who were led to believe Jesus, Allah, or Hashem was God will be as confused and dismayed as will those who thought there was no God. They will have made a poor choice and now will seek to blame others for having misled them. And that is one of many reasons they will be turning against one another. If you had been led to believe that Jesus was returning with open arms to receive his church and find instead that God is destroying it, the experience would be disorienting. All the more perplexing would be watching him defend the Jews whom you had been told he despised. Rabbis will be no less bewildered, even disappointed. The God whose name they despised will have returned as he had promised, and he will have brought the Mashiach Dowd back with him. But rather than being accepted as the best and brightest of the people, they will be ridiculed. Imagine the consternation as Jews turn to Yahowah and away from them. They will all do what comes naturally to them, and attempt to control everyone around them. It is all they know. And when the people won't come willingly, when 247 they ignore the rabbinic threats, things will turn ugly and the rabbis will become aggressive, showing their true colors. A word about Mowryah before we press on. While almost always translated as neighbors in this context, its primary meaning comes from Ra, evil and wicked, wrong and immoral. Therefore, whether these are friends and companions or just fellow citizens and countrymen, they are up to no good. All the while, Yahowah's family will be cared for and protected. Moreover, quick to devour and consume, even, Yahweh, beloved of Yah, will participate, fighting and then dining, lechem, will either be hostile or engage in a feast, consuming bread, Yaruwshalaim, source of guidance on reconciliation. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:14 in part. Written exactly the same way, lechem means loaf of bread, while lochem is feast. Lachem, which appears only half as frequently, can either convey to fight or to eat. Lachem also means to participate, to associate, to integrate, and to engage. While each connotation is possible, I suspect that consuming bread while engaging in a feast is the intended meaning. It was likely ignored by the rabbis in favor of hostility because they have labeled Yom Kippur a fast, during which the religious afflict themselves. Reinforcing this conclusion, the closest derivative of gam is gamma, meaning will be quick to devour and consume, swift to swallow and eat up. And since lechem is more often translated as bread, the passage could read Yahuwdym will quickly consume bread in 248 Yaruwshalaim. In this regard, the message is similar to the Yatsa, Exodus, where Yahuwdym were told not to hesitate, not yeasting their bread such that they could expedite their flight to freedom. For those who favor traditional Bible translations, believing that even Judah will fight against Yaruwshalaim, that is senseless. Further, just a moment ago we were told that everyone who came to fight against Jerusalem would be liquefied. As such, Yahowah's people are celebrating the Miqra'ey of Yowm Kipurym in Yaruwshalaim by consuming a feast. As we read what comes next, be aware that Asaph insinuates that the collected material is to be taken away and removed, ceasing to exist. And he will gather up and collect, Asaph, he will take away and either bring, assembling in one place, or he withdraw it such that it ceases to exist, the wealth, shale, the property, of all of the surrounding, Sabib, Gentiles and their nations, Hargawim, the foreign unrelated peoples and animalistic nations, including gold, zahab, and silver, Wakizb. And then the offensive garments Wabijed, the deceptive religious apparel and treacherous political uniforms, from far and wide and in great abundance, La Rob Mow'ed, Zechariah 14:14, will similarly endure, Waken, the rebuking plague, Majephah, the destructive pandemic of disapproval which kills those engaged in battle and who are wrong, the pestilence which decimates, with it coming to exist upon, transpiring on, the flying and mobilized weapons, the troop transports and supply trucks, harsus, harpirid, harjamal, chamor, along with whatever other beastly thing, behooves, which is associated with them that may exist in their camps, asher haya bar makaneh hem, which is in proximity to their military presence. 249 These two will experience the plague, be defeated, then exterminated, harmajefa harjoth, and be destroyed and die. Zechariah, remember Yahowah, Zechariah 14:15. This is also akin to the Yatsa, Exodus, where Yahuwdym carried gold and silver out of Mitsraym. But this time, since the verb was written in third person masculine singular, it is God who is gathering up and collecting the silver and gold. While the offensive apparel, religious garments, and treacherous uniforms are categorized with the gold and silver in the artificial verse designation, they belong with the things being eradicated. The people from whom the clothing will have been taken will have been dissolved, leaving the ground littered with this nasty stuff. God's people are not going to be wearing any of it. Zechariah used the vocabulary at his disposal to describe the military equipment brought to bear against Israel. So, in the above, his terms were translated into modern English to convey what each animal would represent in today's parlance. And since the plague is the same, they will be melted down along with the militants and soldiers. At this point, there are only 2 or 3 groups of people left on planet Earth. There are Israelites and Yahuwdym who have come to know, trust, and rely upon Yahowah and who are now looking forward to celebrating Sukah with him. And there are some adopted covenant members who may be the subjects of the next statement. They may hail from some of the Gentile nations which will attack Israel, but since they are supportive of God's people, they will be spared. Third, there may be some who are neither covenant nor Israelite, and who did not come to fight either. While this is unlikely, they may even be among those who were 250 said to be bewildered and dismayed. If so, it is possible that they are being given the opportunity of a lifetime. But it is also possible that Yahowah's intense presence reached around the world and incinerated all who were not enveloped in his spirit. Then it will exist, that everyone who survives, that all who are left over, the entire remnant who is spared, out of all of the Gentile nations, which have come against, who have arrived in opposition to, Yaruwshalaim, shall ascend, Allah, to the degree necessary, to a sufficient amount and as is needed, year after year, shana bar shana, to show up and make a declaration, to explain and announce their position, providing notice, to the king, melek, and to celebrate, chag, to revel in and enjoy, the festival feast, chag, the party, of Sukah, Sukah, of the dwelling place, shelter, and home, of tabernacles and booths, of Yahowah of the spiritual implements, Yahowah's Arbor. Zechariah 14:16. We know that these fortunate few are not among those who came to wage war against Jerusalem because those sorry souls have all been vaporized. Therefore, these men and women are non-combatants who were living in Gentile nations at the time of the attack. If they are covenant, then this statement is rendered correctly, such that they are chore, conveying their desire to speak with the king and then celebrate the feast of Sukah with Yahowah. Again, if they are covenant, it appears that they will be able to celebrate the first 6 Mow'ed anywhere in the world but will travel to Yaruwshalaim to address the king and camp out with Yahowah during Sukah. This suggests that there may not be all that many of them based on the size of the city. 251 There is another possibility, because there are discordant views on whether chore, to explain and announce appears in this declaration or shakar, which is typically rendered as bow down but can also mean to swim, which could be funny considering the new waterway. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have considerable textual support for Zechariah chapters 1-6 and 8-12, but only one line from the 14th, which is 14:18. We are therefore reliant on the various versions of the Masoretic text for Zechariah 14:16. Since we are not told if these Gentiles are alive and ascending because they are covenant or because they were not killed by God while he was defending Yaruwshalaim, there is the possibility that they are being afforded the opportunity to live out the rest of their lives outside of Israel so long as they acknowledge King Dowd's authority. After demonstrating their respects, they would then be afforded the opportunity to camp out with covenant members for 8 days prior to heading back home. Day is one of Hebrew's more interesting terms. It speaks of that which is adequate and sufficient. As such, it will be considered sufficient for these Goyim to observe the single feast with attendance at the others determined by whether or not they are covenant. And should they be covenant, they would now be immortal, perfected, adopted, enriched, and empowered, and thus have already received the benefits of Pesach, Matzah, Miqra'ey, and Shabat. With their annual declaration, they fulfill the intent of Towrah as well. Kipurym is for Yisrael and Yahweh, and not Goyim apart from them. This then leaves the result, which is to camp out with God. And if they are not covenant, then it would be inappropriate for them to observe any of the previous 6 Mow'ed. 252 We are afforded a choice relative to the juxtaposition of Yahweh's name and either melek, king or chag Sukah, the Feast of Shelters. The most adroit fit seems to be the celebration, which is why the translation was composed in this manner. No matter if Yahweh is serving as co-regent with his son, Dowd, or if God is here to celebrate his relationship with his covenant family, the time of Jacob's troubles is over. Yahweh has prevailed. Mercifully, evil has been obliterated. 5 days have passed since God's return on the Day of Reconciliations. We are now celebrating Yahweh's festival feast of Sukah. We will camp out together for 1,000 years, reconciled with our Creator and Father. I am ready. Will you be there?